All right, ready for another deep dive?
Always.
Today it's all about self-sovereignty.
Ooh, interesting.
We're looking at excerpts from Leteti Texti
Okay.
and how it breaks down this concept using the fictional world of Eryaba and the chronicles of the Kylam Keep saga.
Cool.
Get ready to explore the evolution of self-sovereignty.
Right.
Not as like some power grab,
Right.
but as rediscovering and integrating our most authentic selves.
I like that. It's fascinating how the source material presents this idea of remembering who we truly are.
Yeah.
Like, it's saying sovereignty is something inherent that we've simply forgotten.
Yeah, it really makes you wonder, what if we're not starting from scratch, but actually uncovering something that's already there?
Right, like remembering instead of starting new.
Exactly. And this deep dive emphasizes that journey, breaking it down into 3 distinct phases.
Oh, that's smart.
Mm-hmm.
Those phases are so relatable to our own lives, even outside the fantastical world of, what was it? Eryaba, right.
Yes. Let's dive into that first phase.
Okay.
The self-sovereign bound by the past.
I like that.
The text kind of paints this picture of a struggle, almost like pushing against the walls of a box we've been put in.
Yeah, that initial yearning for control, It's like that need to define ourselves in opposition to something or someone else.
Right.
I think the text even compares it to like a child seeking validation by rebelling against their parents' expectations.
Oh, which makes total sense.
Yeah.
When we're trying to break free from expectations, we often end up defining ourselves in reaction to them instead of on our own terms.
Yeah.
It's like that line from the text. Consciousness carries her past as a map, yet the path it leads her to is a maze.
Oh, that's
We're
good.
so focused on the past, of what we don't want,
Yeah.
that we kind of get lost in the process.
That's so true. You know those moments when you feel stuck in a loop, like repeating the same patterns over and over again?
Totally.
I think that's the maze the text is talking about.
Oh, for sure.
And we all have our own version of it.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
So how do we escape this maze of the past? I'm intrigued by what the text calls fragments of innocence, clinging to a sense of belonging.
Interesting.
It says they mistake dependence for genuine connection.
Right.
It makes me think about how many of us seek validation or approval from others, and we kind of mistake that external acceptance for true belonging.
Yeah, it's such a subtle but crucial distinction.
Right.
We all crave connection, but the source material is pushing us to examine whether we're seeking it in healthy ways or simply recreating patterns of dependence.
And that leads us perfectly into the next phase, the sovereign unbound, breaking illusions. This is where the text gets really interesting with this metaphor of the castle.
Okay.
This castle represents our inner world, the space where we have to confront all those illusions we've built up.
I like that. Now, how can we apply this castle metaphor to our own lives? It's not just a cool image, it's a call to action, right? So think of those moments when you feel deeply challenged, or when your beliefs are shaken, or when you're forced to face uncomfortable truths about yourself.
Mm-hmm.
I think those are the moments we enter the castle.
I see, yeah.
Instead of resisting those challenges, the text suggests we should embrace them as opportunities for growth.
It makes me think about how we often try to avoid discomfort.
Yeah.
But maybe that's exactly where the real transformation happens.
Oh, for sure. You hit the nail on the head. The castle isn't about comfort. It's about confronting those things that hold us back.
Exactly.
And remember, the text explicitly states the castle does not allow stagnation.
Right.
It's constantly pushing us towards growth, towards a deeper understanding of ourselves.
So discomfort and challenge are practically built into the architecture of our inner castle.
It seems that way.
And I'm guessing those peak experiences and realizations mentioned in the text are key to navigating this phase. I'm particularly curious about those peak experiences. I mean, who doesn't love a good aha moment?
Yeah.
But what exactly are they in this context?
Well, think of those moments when a profound insight hits you, seemingly out of nowhere.
Okay.
Like a sudden flash of clarity that shifts your entire perspective.
Right.
I think those are peak experiences.
I see.
And the text suggests they act as catalysts for growth, like they propel us forward on our journey of self-discovery.
Then they can be big or small, right?
Yeah.
It's not always some earth-shattering revelation,
Yeah.
but maybe also those subtle moments of realization that shift something within us.
Exactly. It's about being open to both the grand epiphanies and the quiet whispers of understanding.
I love that.
And what's important in this phase, as the text highlights, is the transition from trying to control everything to surrendering to a higher awareness.
Okay, that sounds incredibly challenging, yet incredibly liberating at the same time. What does the text suggest about navigating that shift
Yeah.
from control to surrender?
Well, it doesn't offer a step-by-step guide or anything, but it emphasizes the importance of recognizing the illusions of control.
Okay.
We often cling to the belief that we can control outcomes, but true sovereignty lies in letting go of that need and embracing the flow of life.
That's powerful. It makes me think true self-sovereignty might actually require a certain level of humility, a willingness to acknowledge that we don't have all the answers.
I think you're onto something there. Humility, vulnerability, the courage to just let go of the reins.
Right.
These are all qualities the text subtly hints at as essential for navigating this phase of the sovereign unbound.
So we've explored this initial struggle for sovereignty, being bound by the past, and then this crucial step of breaking free from those limitations, confronting illusions within the castle.
Right.
But how does this all lead to that final phase, the sovereign as pure awareness? That's where things start to get really intriguing for me.
Well, in this phase, the text presents a fascinating shift. It moves away from defining sovereignty as something we hold or possess, and instead describes it as a state of being.
So it's not about achieving a certain level of control or power, but rather about embodying a particular way of being in the world. I'm ready to explore this further.
Exactly. It's a shift from striving to simply existing, from defining to experiencing. The text describes it as consciousness transcending the need for definition.
Okay, I'm trying to wrap my head around that. It sounds almost paradoxical.
Mm-hmm.
How can we be sovereign without defining what that sovereignty means to us?
Think of it like this. Have you ever noticed how when you try to force an outcome, it often backfires? But when you surrender to the process, when you allow things to unfold naturally, you often end up with a result that's far more aligned with your true desires.
That actually makes a lot of sense. It's like letting go of the need to control every detail and trusting in a larger intelligence, a wisdom that's guiding us.
Yeah, and this concept of pure awareness really resonates with the idea of mindfulness. The ability to simply observe our thoughts and emotions without judgment. It's about recognizing that we are not our thoughts, but the awareness that experiences them.
So it's about stepping back from the constant chatter of our minds and becoming the observer, the witness to our own experience. This is where I feel like I could use some practical advice. How do we actually cultivate this pure awareness in our daily lives? The text mentions this beautiful image of the individual becoming the weave in the ocean.
What a powerful image, right? It suggests a merging with something larger than ourselves, a dissolution of the boundaries we typically perceive between ourselves and the world around us. And maybe that's a clue to cultivating this pure awareness. By practicing presence, by truly immersing ourselves in the moment we begin to experience that interconnectedness.
So instead of constantly analyzing or judging our experience, we simply allow ourselves to be present with it, to feel the sensations, to observe the thoughts and emotions without getting swept away by them.
Exactly. And here's where another fascinating element comes in, the integration of our shadow selves. The text suggests that in this phase, we no longer view these shadow aspects of ourselves as separate entities, but as parts of a unified whole.
Earlier we talked about the castle as a place where we confront our illusions. It almost feels like our shadow selves are lurking within that castle too, waiting to be integrated. But I'm also wondering, is there a potential danger in confronting these shadows?
That's a great question, and I think the text would agree that this process of integration shouldn't be undertaken lightly. The shadows hold power, but that power can be destructive if we're not prepared to meet it with compassion and understanding. The text doesn't provide a specific method for shadow work, but it does suggest a need for careful introspection and possibly guidance from those who have navigated this terrain before.
So self-awareness and maybe some wise counsel are key. And when we do integrate these shadow selves, we're essentially embracing all aspects of our being, even the parts we might have previously rejected or denied.
Precisely. It's about acknowledging that those seemingly negative aspects are often where our greatest potential for growth lies. And it's not about condoning harmful behaviors, but rather understanding the root of those behaviors and finding ways to transform them into something positive.
Okay, so we've explored these three distinct phases of self-sovereignty, this incredible journey from resisting the past to breaking free from illusions to ultimately arriving at a state of pure awareness. Now, I'm really curious to tie this back to the fictional world of Arya Bog. The text refers to this concept of the weaving of sovereignty, and I'm wondering how that plays out in the story itself.
Well, the weaving of sovereignty isn't a literal event in the story, but rather a metaphor for the interconnectedness of the characters' journeys. Each character embodies a different aspect of sovereignty, and their interactions, their challenges, their triumphs all contribute to this intricate tapestry of growth and transformation.
So it's like each character is a thread in this larger tapestry, and their individual journeys, while unique, are ultimately intertwined.
Exactly. And this weaving isn't always harmonious. There's conflict, misunderstanding, even betrayal. But through those challenges, the characters are forced to confront their own limitations, to shed their illusions, and ultimately to step into their power.
Now, the text emphasizes that sovereignty is not about ruling over oneself or others, but rather about understanding and accepting oneself as the source of all experience. Do you see that reflected in how the characters navigate their relationships in Area By?
Absolutely. We see characters initially trying to control others to manipulate situations to their advantage. But as they progress through the phases of sovereignty, they begin to realize that true power lies in taking responsibility for their own thoughts, emotions, and actions. And that shift in perspective transforms their relationships.
So it's not about dominance, but about taking ownership of our own inner world and how that impacts our interactions with others.
Precisely. And I think one of the most powerful examples of this is the character of Alara. She begins the story trapped in a cycle of self-sabotage and blame, but as she journeys through the castle of her own inner world, she begins to confront her shadows, to heal old wounds, and to step into a more authentic expression of herself. And this transformation radiates outward, influencing her relationships and her role in the larger story.
That's a perfect example of how personal transformation can ripple outward and impact the world around us. It really brings this whole concept of sovereignty to life.
And it reminds us that sovereignty is not a destination, but a continuous process of unfolding and integrating our true selves. It's a journey we're all on, whether we realize it or not.
And maybe the mystery of Area Ba is a metaphor for the mystery of our own lives, this ongoing exploration of who we are and what we're capable of becoming.
I love that perspective. It suggests that each of us has our own castle to explore our own shadows, to integrate our own unique contribution to make to the weaving of sovereignty.
So in a way, we're all characters in this grand narrative, each playing our part in this intricate dance of self-discovery and collective evolution.
Exactly. And that brings us back to that thought-provoking question we posed earlier. What illusions or fears are we holding on to that might be preventing us from experiencing our full potential?
Yeah, it's a question that really makes you think.
Yeah.
And as we've been exploring these concepts, I can't help but think about those shadow walkers mentioned in the text.
Oh, right.
They're described as like these external forces that challenge the characters. But I'm wondering if they could also represent something more, internal.
That's a fascinating thought. You might be right. Those shadow walkers could symbolize that internal resistance we face when we're trying to grow.
Exactly.
Like our own self-doubt or fear that tries to hold us back.
It's like those shadows are both within us and around us, challenging us at every turn.
Yeah, and the text seems to suggest that facing those shadows, both internal and external, is a key part of, the journey of sovereignty. And it's not about, eradicating those shadows, but understanding them, integrating them, and ultimately using their energy to fuel our growth.
Right. It reminds me of that saying, what we resist persists. Maybe by pushing away those shadow aspects of ourselves, we actually give them more power.
Totally. It's like, have you ever tried to hold a beach ball underwater?
Oh, yeah.
The more you push it down, the harder it springs back up.
Exactly.
But if you let it just float naturally, it finds its own balance.
I like that analogy. So this whole thing about integrating our shadow selves, it's really about finding that balance.
It is.
It's about acknowledging and accepting all parts of ourselves. The light and the dark, the good and the messy parts.
Yeah, it's not about condoning harmful behaviors, but rather about understanding where they come from and transforming them into something positive.
For sure.
It's about recognizing that those, quote, negative aspects often hold the keys to our greatest strengths.
I see what you mean.
Like, for example, say someone struggles with anger. Instead of suppressing it, they could, explore where it comes from.
Right.
Maybe uncovering a deep-seated fear or a sense of injustice.
Yeah.
And by acknowledging and working through those underlying emotions, they could potentially transform that anger into a powerful force for positive change.
Like advocating for justice or protecting others.
Exactly.
So it's like recognizing that even our shadows can be sources of power when they are, of course, channeled in a healthy way.
Exactly. And that process of integration requires, a lot of self-compassion, wouldn't you say?
Oh, absolutely. It's about learning to love and accept ourselves, like unconditionally,
Yeah.
even those parts of ourselves we might have judged before.
And that self-love allows us to extend compassion and understanding to others, too.
Right.
Like a ripple effect, spreading outward from within.
I like that.
Good
And as
stuff.
we each go on these individual journeys of sovereignty, we kind of contribute to a more compassionate and understanding world, right?
Yeah, I think so.
One where everyone feels empowered to embrace their own path.
It's like we're creating a collective tapestry of sovereignty.
Oh, what a beautiful image.
Woven together with threads of individuality and interconnectedness.
So as we wrap up this deep dive into sovereignty, what's the one takeaway you hope our listener carries with them?
That's a good question. I hope they remember this. Sovereignty is not a destination, it's a journey.
Yeah.
And it's a journey that's available to all of us. No matter where we are in life, it's about uncovering and integrating those hidden parts of ourselves,
Right.
those aspects that we may have rejected before. It's about embracing our wholeness, shadows, and light, and stepping into our full potential.
It is.
And, it's about recognizing that we're not alone on this path. We're all interconnected. We support and inspire each other along the way.
So let the mystery of Area Ba be a reminder that the journey of sovereignty is an adventure. It's a journey of self-discovery, of empowerment, of coming home to yourself. And it's a journey that has the power to transform not only your own life, but the world around you.